Hey everybody, Gurmos here with another Warthunder random Dogfights video, where I discuss a few Warthunder related topics while showing some hopefully entertaining dogfight footage. Now there are two main things I want to discuss in this video. First, upcoming simulator battle coverage I plan to do, and a few thoughts on simulator battles in ground forces. And a few thoughts on why you should not judge a plane or a tank by its reputation. But before I start with this, I wanted to address really quickly a question I got about when a new plane analysis video comes out. Well, I have decided that I want to wait till 1.39 is out till I do more videos like that, and the reason is this. In 1.37 a few flight model changes were introduced, like the high-speed control stiffening. Now that's overall a good thing, and I think eventually this will lead to more realistic fights. However, I have to say I'm not too happy with the fact that this feature was only partially introduced. Some planes have very heavy stiffening at high speeds and some don't have it at all. That leads to a lot of matchups in the game where the planes that face each other simply do not abide by the same set of rules. Now that was always a problem with stalling. A lot of planes in the game will not stall and others will stall very abruptly. But since my videos are so far in realistic battle mode, not simulator mode, I figured that stall characteristics do not have such a large impact on analysis videos. I simply tried to avoid flying planes that cannot stall at all myself, and I mention it if a plane was stalling very easily for people that fly with direct control. But most people in realistic battles fly with instructor, so the whole a plane cannot stall thing I figure was not such a big deal for an analysis video. However, now we often have a combination of the stall problem with the high-speed control stiffening, and the control stiffening of course affects everybody. And the difficulty gap between some matchup gets even bigger with this combination. To give you an example, the BF-109 can stall in 1.37, not all BF-109s did it in 1.35, and it gets the high-speed control stiffening. Overall, it feels realistic to fly the 109 in 1.37, with the exception of the overheat. However, many 109s will often face opponents that can neither stall nor have high-speed control stiffening. This is supposed to change in 1.39, and I hope it does. But it also means that the balance between a lot of planes will change a lot, if they suddenly all abide by the same rules. And that is why I want to wait till 1.39 for more plane analysis videos. Now let's talk a bit about simulator battle mode and future SP content on my channel. I was often asked in the past to give simulator battles a try, and there are a few reasons why I did not till now. First of all, so far I was simply happy with realistic battles, so I did not see much reason to move up, and of course I would have to learn and relearn a lot before I can do good simulator battle videos, similar to when I moved up to realistic battles from arcade. I also did not want to play simulator battles without track IR. Now I know track IR is not 100% necessary, and many people do well in simulator battles without it. Looking around using the keyboard like Bismarck does seems to work very well, for example. But when I play cockpit only without the padlock view I use in realistic battles, I just prefer having a head tracking device. Otherwise I feel slightly claustrophobic. Now, what changed my mind about moving to simulator battles was actually the ground forces part of the game. As you may know, we got the chance to test a very early version of the simulator battle mode for tanks in the closed beta test, and even though it was certainly in an early phase, I liked what I saw from it so far. The camera is fixed above the commander's hatch, like if you're turned out of the commander's hatch, and the name tags are gone of course. That's a good first step, and I hope this will eventually be combined with the ability to turn in and out of the tank. Some argue that this requires modeled interiors first, and that this will take a long time, but I don't think you necessarily need a fully modeled interior for turning in and out. If you are just restricted to a commander's periscope or vision slit if you are turned in, that would be good enough for starters until interiors are available. Anyway, till we got to try ground forces simulator battles, I did not think much about it. because I thought it would take a long time until simulator battles would be available, but now it looks like it might be ready sooner than I thought. And the thing is, I actually see very little reason in ground forces not to play simulator battles over realistic battles as soon as simulator battles are released. And that also goes for a lot of my friends. That is definitely a difference to the Air Force part. In the Air Force part of the game, going up from realistic battles to simulator battles is a bit more effort for a lot of people. You need a joystick, and if you haven't used direct control in realistic battles, you need to learn another control method. This is of course not the case in ground forces, and that is why I think a lot more people that want a realistic experience will go straight for simulator battles in ground forces than was the case with the Air Force part of the game so far. And that is also a reason for me to try simulator battle mode for planes, so that I can play both parts of the game in the same game mode if I so choose. And if the people I play the game with play ground forces in simulator mode, I can give them air support. Also, flying a Stuka sortie against player tanks using the window in the floor of the plane and the angle scale in the window to set up a proper dive bombing attack sounds like a lot of fun. So I ordered the Track IR, and I hope it can bring you some simulator battle gameplay in the future. I am not sure how fast though, I do need to get used to the new game mode first, I assume. Well then, another topic I wanted to talk about in this video is related to the how to judge a plane video I made a while ago. Now that video was intended to give people new to the game a tool to judge the performance of planes based on their data, assuming the plane's flight model is somewhat correct. And one of the reasons I made that video is that I think it is a bad idea to judge a plane, or a tank for that matter, by its reputation. Looking at the forums as well as the comments in a lot of videos though, I feel that many people still use a plane's or a tank's reputation as a primary source to judge how it might perform, and I would like to bring you a few examples as to why this can be very misleading. Take the Bf-110 and the Beaufighter as an example. A lot of people, if you would ask them which one of the two was better in air-to-air combat, would most likely pick the Beaufighter based on its far better reputation. Now, most heavy fighters in the game are somewhat overperforming. The 110 is, in my opinion, the only one that is actually underperforming. It is simply too slow. Now, none of those heavy fighters like the 110 did exceptionally well in air-to-air combat, and the concept of an heavy escort fighter with this layout was certainly flawed to a certain extent. However, if you take a look at the history of the Bf-110, the plane actually did not do as bad as some claim, and it was certainly far better suited for a daylight fighter role than other heavy fighters of its time, like the Beaufighter for example. The 110 was much lighter, faster, had a lower wing loading and a better rate of climb. And that's where the reputation thing comes in, because now a lot of people might ask, if that is the case, why did the 110 have such a bad reputation and the Beaufighter such a good one? Well, the Beaufighter had a good reputation because it was a very good plane and it did its job very well. The thing is that the initial roles of the two planes were different, even if they overlapped more later on, so the two planes got a reputation for doing different jobs. The Bf-110's most famous task was of course escorting bombers during the Battle of Britain, the same job the 109s had to do, so they faced Spitfires and Hurricanes in air-to-air combat. That was their role. And even though I think the Bf-110 was better in air-to-air combat than some give it credit for, it is clear that they are outmatched against Spitfires. So in this role the Bf-109 did not perform very well. The Beaufighters of course entered service as a night fighter, and during the Battle of Britain the Beaufighter was certainly the best night fighter available. It had radar, a novelty at this time, and could destroy bombers easily with its heavy armament. Other roles for the Beaufighter were raids and strafing runs at night and attacking shipping either as torpedo bomber or with its guns. A well-known example for that would be the Battle of the Bismarck Sea, where both fighters used a heavy cannon armament to destroy or suppress the anti-aircraft cannons of ships before B-25s started their bombing attacks on them. In all those roles, the bow fighter performed well and gained a well-deserved good reputation. But it would not have been suitable for an air-to-air escort role, and if it would have been employed in such a role, it would not have done any better than the Bf-110, most likely worse. That's why you have to be careful when judging a plane or discussing its performance on the forum when using a plane's reputation. Pay attention to where the reputation is coming from, and you're generally better off actually looking at the data of the plane. The same thing is true for tanks, of course. An example here would be the M4 Sherman. The tank has these days often a very bad reputation. It supposedly had bad armor protection and a bad gun. The T-34-76 on the other hand has the exact opposite reputation, of being well armored and having a good gun. Interestingly, if you compare the two tanks, they are not that far apart. The T-34 has 45mm frontal armor which is 60 degrees sloped back, while the original M4 has 51mm frontal armor which is 55 degrees sloped back. The result is a very similar armor protection at the front. The T-34 has the upper hand when it comes to the side armor though, because it is also sloped. The guns on the two tanks are also similar in performance. Both are designed as multi-purpose guns which can be used against tanks and also provide a good high explosive round, and the Sherman's M3 gun has roughly the same armor penetration than the T-34's F-34 cannon. But of course, the T-34 saw action about a year earlier than the M4, and encountering the T-34 accelerated the speed with which the German tanks were upgraded. Still, by the time the M4 first saw action, it was a very good medium tank, and more than a match for the Panzer IV and Panzer III variants it faced at this time. Of course, the Tiger was in service by this time too, and a lot of people like to compare the Tiger to the M4, but the M4 is a 30-ton medium, while the Tiger is a 57-ton heavy tank. You could take a M4 and weld a Panzer IV on its roof, and this tank sandwich would still be lighter than a single Tiger. It is simply not a comparison you can make. So, despite the reputation of the tank today, when the Sherman entered service, it was a very capable medium tank, even in tank versus tank combat. Its bad reputation comes more from the fact that the M4s that landed in 1944 in the Normandy were still basically the same than the ones that first saw combat in 1942, except minor modifications. Upgrades to the design were introduced too late, and other tanks that were upgraded over time had overtaken the Shermans at this point. After upgrades like the new 47-degree front with 63mm armor and the 76mm M1 gun were introduced, the tank stayed a capable medium tank till the end of the war. Late war versions like the EC-8 outperformed, in my opinion, both late Panzer IVs like the H as well as the T-34-85. I picked that example because I lately often heard that the captured M4 you get from one of the ground forces tank packs would be a terrible tank at rank 2, and I think a lot of people might be surprised. Well, that's it for this video. As always, I hope it was entertaining. Thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.